Hello, everyone. I just wanted to make a brief video checking in uh, with you on week 4 of the course, the second week of our deeper look at Kant's moral philosophy. I was looking over the readings. These are excerpts from his work. I tried to hone it down to what I considered to be the really essential parts of it, although it was still, pretty challenging reading. Looking at some of the videos. It's hard to, I think, boil down to some easily summarized point what this reading is about. It's about a number of related subjects. In this part of the reading, this part of the book, Kant goes deeper into the very notion of duty. What does it mean to act out of duty? Clearly, duty, the notion that we have obligations. He's fleshing out this idea of duty, that duty is a kind of an absolute for him. It's not kind of an absolute, it is an absolute. That is, unless the obligation that we recognize, and this is a moral obligation, right, is absolute in the sense that we have no choice but to obey it, or, that if we don't obey it, we have to admit that we're doing wrong, that this is at the very heart of Kant's notion of morality. And this is at the very heart of the idea of the categorical as opposed to the hypothetical imperative. I'll pay very close attention to that. That's so key. And I think it's important not only for our understanding of Kant and perhaps later on how we will begin to contrast him with John Stuart Mill and utilitarianism, but that distinction between hypothetical and categorical imperatives is very sort of, I would say, defining thing in terms of people's notions of what morality in general actually is. Just morality itself actually is. That is, Kant is fully committed to the idea that there are categorical imperatives. That is, there are certain rules which command us and have authority over us and are exceptionless and that we must always follow if we are to be ethical. And there are others who believe that all moral rules, all moral commands are merely hypothetical. That is, they're if-then conditional statements. That is, that there are no absolute exceptionless duties, rules that must be followed in morality. I think that that's a very valuable thing, not just, again, this transcends Kant and Mill, just when we begin to think about morality as a whole and we begin to sketch out our own positions. I think we make our own decisions, for ourselves, whether we view morality as having these absolutes, as Kant would think, or, to put it in his language, whether all of our so-called obligations or duties are merely suggestions. Right? If you want this, then do that. If you think this is important, then you should do that. I mean, it's a fully coherent view of morality. It's just not Kant's, right? So it's a good thing to work that out, because you'll be making, obviously, your own choices about these things. So he fleshes out the idea of duty, which is incredibly important, and it leads to this notion of categorical versus hypothetical imperatives. He gives great examples, one section of what actual duties are, gives scenarios, which are not all that different from the one that I started the course with, actually, probably imitating Kant, which is okay, which are very helpful because it gives you a sense of what the heck he's actually talking about. But this part of the course kind of culminates in the second version of the categorical imperative. And nothing could be more important than that. And I don't want to boil everything down to that, because we already saw the second version in week 2. And so, what are we doing if we're just repeating that? But it gives us a chance to go back to that and reinforce that. It's just being so important. That is, when Kant actually comes down to saying what these duties are, generally speaking, what these rules are that are exceptionless, he really only gives us 2 examples. One is the one we're familiar with, the universalizability from the first version of the categorical imperative. But the second one about respect for persons, recognizing the dignity of persons, and therefore treating them always as ends and never as a means to an end, is a incredibly important idea. And I think in certain ways, a sort of a founding idea in terms of our modern idea of human rights, that all human beings, one may say, have a dignity that demands that we respect it. And it doesn't matter if they're rich or poor, or French or Chinese or American or Brazilian. It just by virtue of being a human being, you have a certain status, a certain moral status that demands respect. I don't know if we, obviously maybe we could trace that idea back further, but certainly Kant's formulation of the second version of the categorical imperative is incredibly important and influential articulation of what human rights are actually based upon and why, they're important. I think it'd be more important. So, the whole reading is not just the second version of the categorical imperative, but you come out of Kant with certain ideas. You come out of Kant with certain ways that you've been influenced. And certainly, I would say it's impossible not to be heavily influenced, and for that not to be a big